Thank you everyone for joining today for this webinar all about how to become an Ozobot Certified Educator and earn free robots. We know this continues to be a super challenging and busy time for educators, and we really appreciate any time we get to spend with you. A reminder to introduce yourself, where you're from, what you teach in the chat, and just be sure to select all panelists and attendees when you do so. So we have, let me get to our next slide here. We have a pretty big group today that spans the Ozobot team and a couple of guest certified educators. So within the team, we'll be talking to you about how the program works, but then you also get to hear directly from some of our CEs, which we're super excited about. So we'll quickly just do a round robin where we all introduce ourselves. So Melissa, I'm going to kick it off to you to start.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Tui. I'm the EdTech and Adoption Specialist here at Ozobot. I'm also the one that reviews your video cover letters and your lessons when you submit them for the Certified Educator program. So if you have any questions about those requirements, I'm happy to answer them. I'm a former teacher, and when I'm not at Ozobot, I am at UCLA pursuing my doctoral degree where I'm studying computer science implementation in elementary school settings. So I'm really thrilled that you all are here to learn more.
Whoops, and I am Adrienne White. I'm the head of marketing here at Ozobot. I've been with the team about 5 years now, and I get to work in a really cross-functional role where our marketing team works really closely with Melissa and the EDU team and our certified educator community. So that's one of my favorite parts of my job, is getting to connect with teachers and students on a regular basis. I'll pass it to Natalie or Jen. We'll go to Jen.
Yeah, I think Natalie's having some issues getting into our Zoom, but let me see if I can work that out while Jen goes.
I'm happy to go next. My video is having trouble, so I'm afraid you'll just get to hear me today. I work for Ozobot in the customer experience area and also in the EDU area as a curriculum developer. So I've done some of the lessons that you'll find in the Ozobot lesson library, which is one of my passions. I'm also a former teacher and many years teaching experience. I started teaching dance to all ages in a private studio and finished my teaching career as a math and science middle school teacher. So kind of a broad spectrum of experience in age and subject. And I will pass it to Kat.
Hi, I'm Kat Staten. It doesn't seem like I'm able to turn on my video, so I apologize. I am a technology teacher in Virginia, and I'm currently in Wisconsin visiting my son and my daughter-in-law. And I have been in my technology position for about 8 years, and then I taught special education for about 16 years prior to that.
Okay, and my name is Amanda Bushman. I'm also having video trouble today as well. So I'm from Houston. I am currently an elementary school librarian. This is my 11th year, I believe. And I used to teach high school English as well. So this is my 17th year in education. And I'm also a NICE certified STEM educator.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Kat and Amanda. We are really excited to have you guys. So here's a quick agenda for what we're going to be covering today. So I mentioned the Ozobot team will cover some things, and then you'll get to hear from Kat and Amanda a bit as well. So we'll start off with housekeeping, how the webinar works. Then we'll get into answering the main question on everyone's minds. What is the Ozobot CE program? How does it work? How to apply? And then once you're in the program, what are the CE requirements? We're then going to kick it to Kat and Amanda to see some examples of outstanding CE submitted lessons. The reason that's important is because when we talk about how to apply for the Certified Educator program, part of the application process is submitting your own Ozobot lessons. So we just want to show you how easy it is to create amazing content. Not easy, but it is possible. So, and then finally, we'll get into Q&A. We want to leave plenty of time to answer any and all questions you guys have about this program. And if you're hopefully thinking of applying, we can answer really specific questions to help you get closer. And so Melissa, I'll kick it off to you for a bit.
Sure. Yeah, so we are just going to go over some housekeeping items. If you would like a recording of this webinar, if you opt in for our updates on our website, you'll be sent an email recording. Otherwise, you can find them on our YouTube channel or our webinar page. If you're an attendee, your camera is off and you are on mute, so you don't have to worry about us seeing or hearing you. If you have any questions, please use that Q&A feature. Or type them into the chat. We have Cassandra behind the scenes monitoring the chat and answering any questions you might have. In the Q&A feature, you can also upvote and comment on one another's questions. And if you use that chat function, please don't forget to change the to field to all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your messages. But we'd love to know more about everyone who's in the audience. If you could just introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, what you teach, and what brings you to this webinar today. It would be really helpful for us.
Yeah, let us know, because we usually get educators from all across the United States and sometimes abroad. So it's fun to hear where you're tuning in from.
And actually but just to interrupt, I think before we get started, Natalie was able to join us. So Natalie, if you want to introduce yourself really quickly, that would be great as well.
Oh, sure. Hey, everybody. I don't know. Can you see me? Because I only see you, Melissa. Oh, okay. Hi. Well, anyway, sorry. I was having trouble getting in. But part of the EDU team work on the backside of things, developing curriculum that hopefully you all, if you have not yet gotten a chance to create an Ozobot account and explore the library of resources that are available, you will at some point help develop those lessons that are instrumental in utilizing your bot with your students. And just happy to be here for all of you interested in joining the CE program. And we love your feedback and ideas. So even if you don't decide to do the CE program and you have wonderful ideas, we always want to hear from you.
Absolutely. So with that, and thanks Natalie for joining us. So with that, we'll talk a little bit about what the CE program is. So the Ozobot Certified Educator program, CE program for short, is really an ambassador program. Sometimes we've heard that because of the name, there's a little confusion with other types of certified educator programs. So it's truly an ambassador program that's designed to recognize outstanding educators who use Ozobot around the world. Used to be limited just to the US, but it's been expanded internationally. So here you can see a list of the types of educators who can apply. So it covers public and private K-12 teachers, school and district administrators, curriculum specialists, librarians, and PD trainers. If you fall into something close to one of these categories and you're not sure if you can apply, that's a question we can answer for you today. Just so you know, a lot of our certified educators tend to be things like tech TOSAs or STEM teachers, that kind of role, but really they do run the gamut. We have English teachers and other types of educators in the classroom as well. The most important part to know about our Certified Educator program is probably the fact that it gets you free Ozobot products. So every certified educator gets an Evo Classroom Kit with 12 Ozobot Evo robots. The program spans a 2-year time period. So once you apply, you're in for at least 2 years. And we make it really easy for you. If you stay engaged and meet certified educator requirements, you get rolled into future runs of the program. So that's going to ensure that you're always getting access to our product. And that Evo Classroom Kit comes, like I said, with 12 Ozobot Evo robots, 12 sets of color code markers, a really fancy new charging base that we have in there, an Ozobot poster, and some other accessories. And then our CEs get some extras as well. So We really like to share swag with you guys. We know that you're proud to be partnered with Ozobot, so we want to give you ways to show that off. So that ranges from things like t-shirts and hoodies that will come with your CE package, stickers, an email signature badge for your emails, and then even things like we have Ozobot coffee cups and things that tend to get thrown into those swag packs when you join. One note I wanted to say about that, for some CEs who have joined in the past year, those swag kits got a little backlogged. So I just want to mention that if you haven't received yours yet, you will soon. We just had to print some new certified educator hoodies. So those are on the way, brand shiny new ones. And then finally, you get opportunities to maybe get featured on the Ozo blog as our educator of the month, or join us for webinars like Kat and Amanda have here. And fast forward to someday when we're in person at events again, CEs also get exclusive opportunities to join us at trade shows. We have a really fun Ozobot booth that people love to be a part of. So here you just see some fairly recent CEs who joined the program who were really excited to get their product. So that probably brings up the question of how you actually apply and can get your hands on a free Evo Classroom Kit. There's really 3 key steps here. The first thing you're going to want to do is to create an Ozobot Classroom account. I think mentioned this at the beginning. We're going to email all these slides out to everyone. So when I click on links and things, don't worry, you'll be receiving these slides. So you can create an account at classroom.ozobot.com. and you'll just sign up or sign in there if you already have an account. From there, you're actually going to create and submit 3 or more Ozobot lessons. So Melissa mentioned earlier, she's the person who reviews and partners with you to get those lessons in line with our guidelines. And she's a great resource when it comes to helping you create those and just troubleshoot through problems while you're creating your content. And then from there, you'll just keep an eye on your inbox. We'll reach out if your lessons are approved. Melissa, I believe you provide pretty distinct feedback if things are close but need to be enhanced a little bit to pass the approval process. And then once your lessons are approved, which again, we'll partner with you to get there, then you'll get an Ozobot t-shirt and be invited for the final stage of the application, which is where you'll actually send in a video cover letter outlining your interest in the Ozobot CE program. Just to show you really quickly, since I had Classroom open, I want to sign in real quick. For anyone who is brand new to Ozobot Classroom or just created an account and hasn't really explored yet, the lesson section is in the left nav here. And we'll go into a little bit more detail about this, but I just want to flag that and the lesson creator tool because we're going to talk about it some more later. So again, I went to classroom.ozobot.com to log in or sign up, and then there's a lessons section that we're going to focus on a bit. And Melissa, I will let you talk about how to create an exemplar lesson, if that sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. So when your lesson review or comes and hits my inbox, essentially there are all these requirements that are listed here, and we do have a blog post about exactly what we're looking for. So we highly encourage you to check that out to understand what the requirements are. But to put it in a nutshell, I look at the lesson plan and I ask myself, if I handed this to another teacher, would they know exactly what to do? So we recommend that you provide as much detail as possible. The most common improvements I suggest are if teachers have worksheets to go along with the lesson, if they have answer keys to go along with the lesson, if they have any examples of what a finished product should look like. All of those help other teachers visualize what the outcome should be like and what the lesson could look like in their own classrooms. So any extra materials that you have in addition to what we're asking for as baseline will help you in the approval process. We do we do ask that you provide as much detail as possible in those direct instruction and student practice steps, so that any teacher is able to look and understand exactly how to deliver the content. And a bonus, I don't know how familiar everyone in the audience is with our instructional videos, our Learn Anywhere lessons, but we have started creating content with video instructions. Feel free to check that out in our lesson library. If you include an instructional video in your lessons, that's also a major bonus, and that will win you a lot of points when we're considering your application.
And just to show you for these general tips on the left-hand side here, one thing that we recommend is just to get inspired by the Ozobot community. So we've got Kat and Amanda here to provide some of that today, but you can also just pretty much anytime go on Twitter and search #Ozobot and see amazing content that's being created by educators around the world. If you don't have an Ozobot, like a classroom set, that's okay. We actually have an entry-level product called the Evo Educator Entry Kit. So you can purchase, when they're back in stock, which should be soon, a single robot for $99. And that can be enough to get you thinking and creating content so that you can apply for the program and earn that full set of 12 robots. So that was something we wanted to make available to the education community so that you had, again, a more accessible entry point with that $99 bot. So that's one tip. And then I mentioned the lesson creator. So that can actually be a great way to help you structure a lesson according to these guidelines that Melissa mentioned. So back within Ozobot Classroom, again, I went to lessons and then lesson creator. And if you use our Ozobot template here, it's really stepping you through the process of creating your lesson. And again, we'll cover a lot of these steps and guidelines. And we'll put in, Melissa mentioned a blog post that goes into even more detail on this. So we'll make sure to add that link to this slide before we send the email after this webinar.
Great. So once you're accepted into the program, it is a 2-year commitment. And what we ask of you is that each year you submit 3 lessons to the lesson library, which will be in that same format that you added when you applied for the program, and then to present at one conference a year. We know that COVID has turned our world upside down and that conferences are a little tougher to, definitely in person to attend, but virtually it might be a little tough as well. You're more than welcome to present at a virtual conference, or you can host a webinar with us, host a Twitter chat, or participate in a user interview. We have opportunities for all 3. Sometimes when it comes to the webinar and Twitter chat, sometimes we have a subject or content area that we want to focus on, and we put out a call asking if anyone's interested. Sometimes we have certified educators that come to us and say, hey, we're really interested in doing a webinar or Twitter chat on this topic. Can we do it? And our answer is pretty much always yes, because we want to engage our community. We want to engage other teachers and just promote those meaningful conversations that are going on. So the requirements are really reasonable, considering that you're getting a full classroom kit. I know if I were still in the classroom, I would absolutely sign up for this program. As you know, I think Adrian has mentioned before in past webinars that we are very generous with what we offer for what we ask of our certified educators and our teachers.
Yeah, and like Melissa mentioned, you know, we had that presentation requirement about presenting at a conference. I just want to mention, you can also present at a virtual conference. I know we may not have that many more months of those going on, but that's an option too, and something a lot of our CEs have done with great success. So with that, we are going to look at a couple of outstanding examples of certified educator created and submitted lessons. Again, this is because we want to give you guys all the tools to create lesson content of your own. So go into this with that mindset, and we'll leave plenty of time for questions for Kat and Amanda and our whole team at the end. So Kat, we're going to start with you.
Okay, thank you. First, the template that you were just shown is a fantastic way to write your lesson plans, and it does really walk you through the process. So I use my Ozobots starting around January because it's usually kind of dull and there's not a whole lot going on, and I really want to make sure that my students stay engaged. So we call it Janubot because that's when we use our robot. So this lesson is called Codaflake, and this is done, I've done it before with our art teacher, and I have done it before with just myself. It's essentially students are already familiar with using the Ozobots and the color codes. And my older students will make their snowflakes together in the class, the beginning of class, where even just folding it and cutting it out. My younger students, the snowflakes are already folded because that can be a little tricky, but they still go ahead and cut it out. And then once they're finished, they flatten the snowflakes down, and then they start putting on the color codes. And what they try to do is they try to get it around as much of their snowflake as they can. And once they're able to do that, then they can go in and they can add like the tricks, like the tornado and things like that. Students absolutely love these snowflakes. They love this project. As you can see in the picture right there, if they don't take it with them, which a lot of them do try to do, I put them up on the wall outside so everyone else can see what we're doing. And then the grade levels that are working on it, because I try to do different grade levels at different times because I teach kindergarten through 4th grade. So it's a little overwhelming if I try to do it all in the same rotation. But then they can see what their peers are doing and like, oh, that's a great idea. Let me try that. And so when they have their snowflake and their turn, they can, try to take some of those ideas and then make them their own. So what I do at the end of class is after everyone has been able to finish their snowflake is I have them walk around the class and with their Ozobot, and they try their peers' snowflakes and see what they designed, how they created their snowflakes. And just a couple of notes about this lesson that I've learned some the hard way is always have a few flakes already cut out for students that are arriving late or they didn't quite cut it correctly and it falls into pieces, or they're just quite frankly, oh, I don't like my snowflake and they're really down on it. Say, oh, okay, well, do you like one of these? And I show them one of the snowflakes I've already cut out ahead of time. And then I would kind of bribe my kids by I have them clean up the mess from the snowflakes first, then they can have their markers and start creating. Otherwise, they have so much fun and time goes so fast that you realize you still have little snowflake pieces all over the floor and the table, and they've already had all their fun with the Ozobot and creating with the color codes that it's time to go, and now you're stuck with the big mess on the floor. So, and once they realize, oh, I just have to clean up my little mess and I get my markers and I can get creating, then they'll clean it up very quickly for you. But this is one of my students' favorite lessons. They absolutely love it. And they get so excited in January when we're able to start creating this. And that's about it.
And I just wanted to call out that, Kat, you've been in the Certified Educator program since 2017.
Yes, yes.
So like I mentioned, if you are hitting those CE requirements every year, you're submitting lessons, you're hitting that presentation requirement, whether it's through an actual trade show or a virtual event or a webinar with us, you'll get rolled into the program on an ongoing basis. So we try to make it really easy for engaged CEs to stay involved. And we'll get to Amanda in just one moment, but I just wanted to mention again, Ozobot Classroom, if you're interested in finding Codaflake in there, you can just search for it. So here's Kat's lesson, and then you can see actually the full lesson plan that includes standards and the activity guide for students. So just wanted to mention that really quick. Thank you so much, Kat. And then Amanda will move to your lesson.
Okay, awesome. Well, I am a freshly minted certified educator. So new kid on the block here. And prior to becoming certified, I just had 2, maybe 3, depending on the day, Ozobots in my library. And so my kit just came in. And so keep in mind, when I made all of these lessons and ideas, it was during the pandemic. And our kids, thankfully, are starting to come back on campus. So I'm really excited to put all of my ideas and the Ozobots together. The way I did approach my lessons is combine a text with some kind of challenge involving the Ozobot. And my favorite that I chose was a text called The Princess and the Warrior. And I chose this because most of the grade levels in elementary touch upon fairy tales and folk tales. And this particular book has won the Pura Belpré Award, and it's also animated on Get Epic really well. And so it's very engaging to the children. So they get really involved into the story like right away. And so what I did was I kind of added on more layers, because most of the children at my school, they have been introduced to Ozobots and they know the basic coding aspects of the Ozobots. So I thought, well, how can I add on a different layer of challenge to that? So I brought in Legos to it as well. So within this one, we read the story, and then they have 3 different levels of challenges. And you can see the objectives right there. In the story, a messenger reaches a princess and he gives her a wrong message that causes her basically to do like a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. And so the challenge is for the kids to build like a castle or an abode for the princess, and then a blockade for the messenger using the Lego. And then using the Ozobots and their codes, code a way to stop, or the little messenger Ozobot trying to get to the princess, and then it has to stop. The blockade has to stop the little messenger Ozobot from getting to the princess. And if you go to the next slide, I'll show you there. It has some pictures of what they already have constructed in terms, I don't know what that for. I think that's somebody falling to a pit of lava. So I'm not sure what that is. But they constructed one of the first elements, which is the abodes and the blockades. And then you can see how easily we could add on the Ozobots, going around that. And then just listening to Kat speak, I had an idea as well, because I give the kids printouts of Aztec patterns because that's so prevalent in the story. And it would be kind of cool to have them try to reconstruct something like an Aztec pattern using Ozobot codes, and then to have their Ozobot basically go through and dance an Aztec pattern. So maybe I can add that into the lesson, or just create a separate lesson for that. I think that would be kind of cool. So just to sum up, I kind of took an idea that I already had and just elevated it and added an extra layer onto it with the Ozobots, just challenging my kids even more. They got that down already, and now I'm challenging them more with the Ozobots. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Amanda. And can you actually, since you're a relatively new CE and you just had, I think, a couple of Ozobots when you were creating these lessons, were there any challenges with not having a full set, or was it pretty straightforward to still come up with the content and submit?
I found it pretty easy to come up with ideas to submit. Again, because I feel like the Ozobots are just so flexible. Like I could use them, easily with any text. But also I could think like with science or social studies and even math concepts, like you could really just adjust them to anything. So and you can ask Melissa, like I submitted 4 lessons. And then I could have even gone more just because I just have so many ideas. And I was like, all right, I need to chill out. So, yeah.
Keep them coming, please, Amanda.
Okay.
Yes, please do. We're such fans. And just like with Kat's lesson, you can find Amanda's lesson anytime in the lesson library in Classroom, but the team also dropped direct links to those 2 lessons we've seen today into the chat. So let us know if you have any questions about that. But we did want to leave a lot of time for Q&A so that any of you here joining tonight who maybe have thought about applying and want to take the next steps, we can troubleshoot with you, answer more detailed questions about the program. So let's see if anything's been submitted to Q&A. Otherwise, you guys can raise your hands, I believe. I'm just double checking one more place. Oh yeah, I think we're gonna unmute everyone so that you guys can just chime in with questions or thoughts.
If I submitted some in the past that got sent back, is there any statute of limitations? Can I finish it up and resubmit?
Absolutely. Ellen, great question. I know, I hope I gave some feedback on that. And if not, feel free to circle back with me because I believe your lesson should still be in our database. So I should be able to pull that up and provide that feedback if that information is still accessible. So feel free to reach out to me directly if you want to get that rolling. The other thing you can do is if you created those lessons through Ozobot Classroom, if you log into your account, you can actually see what you've already submitted, and those lessons will likely be in a pending state, and you can actually click next to it and re-edit them and resubmit them as well.
Are you, okay, so we're in a hybrid model now, kind of expecting that we're going back to 5-day learning. Are you thinking that you would like to have that same kind of flexibility in the lesson plans? Is it helpful to be able to assign things remotely in addition to in person in the lesson plan?
Yeah, if you could provide tips for both, that would be ideal. If I would say that's the strongest way to submit a lesson. If that's not possible for whatever reason, as long as all the materials are there and the teacher would be able to easily figure out exactly what needs to be done, that is the most ideal. So as many resources and as many worksheets and examples of student work as possible are always very, very helpful.
Because this is particularly challenging now with the idea of some students being at home, not having access to a robot. Some of the STEM materials I've been able to send home, but I'm not really comfortable sending home an Ozobot. I just don't think it would come back. And if it did, I'm not sure it would work, you know, it's just not appropriate. So I'm trying, that's one of the things I'm working on, is trying to figure that out, how to be equitable. You know, like, should I host an Ozobot party, you know, for the remote students? That's kind of one of my ideas. So I just could use some feedback on that.
Absolutely. Are you familiar with our, we used to call them games, they're now called challenges, Shape Tracer 1 and 2 and Ozotown?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
These are greatly loved.
Oh, great. Okay, because that's a really easy way to deliver instruction to students who may not have access to bot or at home and aren't able to get their hands on one. So that's a really great way to start.
Some of my students, I was asking them the other day, you know, what did they remember from last year? Because they got sent home. So, you know, like in March. And they said, what were those little things that we had that we were making them move? They're like little robots. They couldn't remember the name, but they definitely remembered the challenges and they remembered the codes, you know, like some of them, I don't know, this is like young kids, right? Grades 3, 4, and 5. Some of them, the thing that they remembered was when I had them dance the patterns, like, you know, turbo and stuff like that. That's what they remembered from technology class. Not so much always like the coding or whatever, but they remembered the motion and how fun it was to, we made these really long strings of code, and they were allowed to join with a partner and join their drawings to the person next to them, and then to the 4 people at their table. And then we went out in the hall and did the whole class. And that's what they remembered. They remembered the hands-on part of it. It was really interesting to see, you know, what their brains retained over, you know, this is like a year and a half later now. that trying to restart this, it's kind of difficult because, we lost a lot, right? This year we lost a lot of progress.
Yeah. It sounds like it really sunk in with them, Ellen, that programming can actually be very creative. So props to you for achieving that. One other suggestion I have, since you mentioned not being able to send bots home, we did roll out a hybrid program this year that was very much about taking schools one-to-one with Ozobot and sending bots home to students. And I just want to mention, because we piloted that with a couple of schools in the very beginning, and they were really great thought partners for us. And a couple of those schools found that they had success sending bots home when they created a parent agreement. So making sure that the parents knew that this Ozobot Evo was coming home for their child to complete lessons with, but that they were in part accountable for making sure it came back at the end of the year, was how they kind of handled that situation and still had success. So I just wanted to mention that in case that's helpful to you.
Right. So we were also we had to go one-to-one with iPads during this whole thing because a lot of our students didn't have devices at home, and there was an issue of equity, digital equity. So I felt like I couldn't add, we were having enough trouble with sending devices home and having the kids be responsible for them. We did have a parent agreement, we had all this stuff, but it was a really big undertaking to get. My school has 800 students, so to get 800 iPads organized and sent home and tracked with the parents and get a signed agreement from them. I like the idea of piloting it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of just taking a small group and saying, okay, let's give it a try. I haven't really had success this year with sending things home because a lot of times the kids' parents don't pick them up. I know they would pick up a robot. I'm 100% sure all the robots would be picked up. So I'll just have to work on that a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, let us know how we can help. And definitely as you look at that feedback on your lessons, I hope you'll resubmit because we'd love to have you in the program. We have a question from Kathy who said she has a set of the original Ozobots. So that's Ozobot Bit, not Ozobot Evo. Is that quote unquote too old? I believe a lot of the community content in the lesson library has been produced using Bit. And Melissa, I think we can help if there are changes that need to be made to make it compatible with Evo. We'll be able to help with that, right?
Yes, so all of the Learn Anywhere lesson content that we have developed internally that has been released most recently and is being released as we go in the future is both Evo and Bit compatible. So if Adrian's showing you those remote friendly lessons, these have video, instructional videos attached to them, full-blown lesson plans, student worksheets. These are things that we're developing in-house to provide to you so that the heavy lifting is off of you. You can assign these to students, whether they're in class or remote, and students have access to that computer science instruction. We do mark these as Evo, compatible with Evo because these lessons are integrated with Ozobot Classroom and Google Classroom. And so not to get too much into detail, but because of that integration, we are listing them as Evo compatible. But all the worksheets for these lessons, if you want to use that instructional video yourself and then print out the worksheets are compatible with Bit. So feel free to use those resources. Generally, I would say most of the time the worksheets do work for both robots. Where there is a bigger discrepancy is in Ozoblockly when we introduce the sound blocks and the lighting effect blocks because they are different on both robots. That's where things get a little bit trickier. But for the color codes lessons, for the most part, they are compatible for both robots.
Yeah, so Kathy, with your bits, you'll be able to use this new lesson content Melissa's talking about, which is fully flexible for remote or in-person instruction. And then if you're looking to create some of your own lessons, you can use your bits to do that. Like Melissa said, most color code maps that you might be using are going to be compatible with both robots just by their nature. And then if there is anything we need to change to make it, if it's an Ozoblockly lesson compatible with Evo, we can help with that. So thank you.
Thank
for
you.
coming. Any other questions? Or maybe everyone's inspired and ready to apply. We want to see some more applications coming in for the Certified Educator program. I'll give you guys 1 minute in case there's anything else. Otherwise, I think, Melissa, we might be wrapping up kind of early today. Yeah, I think we got everything.
Sounds great. Well, if you have any questions for us, feel free to email us at support@ozobot.com. Adrienne also has some exciting events for you to check out that she's going to share, but this will give you a good idea as to what hosting an event as a certified educator feels like and looks like, but I'll let Adrienne talk about that.
Yeah, so for the certified educator presentation requirement, we mentioned that one of the ways CEs can fulfill that this year is by hosting Twitter chats. So we wanted to mention and call out for you guys that a couple of our CEs are hosting 2 chats this coming month. First one on April 1st. It is not a joke, it's actually happening. And then a second one on April 15th. So definitely tune in and join us for those. We've just started doing Twitter chats this year, and we really, really like seeing the community come alive on Twitter as an alternative to hosting these webinars. So this one's going to be about teaching with Ozobot, tips, lessons, and more. So really builds on the conversation we started today. And 2 more CEs that you can get in touch with, Jennifer Mayhem and Nikki Jones, who I believe are both CEs who joined the program this year. So if you're wondering how to create content right now while you're maybe still in a remote setting, they can really help with that. So do tune in. The hashtag is OzoChat, and then the times and dates are listed here. So April 1st at 6 p.m. And April 15th at 6 p.m. And with that, I think we're all done. So thank you so much, you guys, for joining. Again, we really hope to see some of you applying in the next couple of months. And if you have any questions at all, you can reach out, like Melissa mentioned, to support@ozobot.com. We definitely want to support you and do whatever we can to help you through the lesson submission process, because we want to get those Evo robots in your hands. So thank you so much for joining, Kat and Amanda. It was such a pleasure to have you guys. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.